So last week, NIO stock was down by 7%. It's now down around 12% for the month and down 22% for the last 3 months. It looks as if now NIO is heading down to test that level of $3 after breaking the 360 support level. So in this video, I want to look at the price action for last week and try and ascertain where NIO is heading next, particularly with the upcoming Q1 earnings report. Let's take a look. So if we zoom in on NIO's weekly chart, we can see last week that price action did break through this key level of $3.60. So it does look as if now NIO is heading downwards and there is more downside. Potentially price may move down to test the $3 level once again. It might fall short and get some support around 330 and then move back up, find resistance here before coming back down again. That's one possibility. Right now, the likelihood is, after this last move, is that NIO is going to come down to around here, retest this level and come down to $3. So what we might see over the next 6 weeks is price action like this. This is my bearish scenario for NIO based on the current price action. It's gone through that 360 key level, and therefore the probability is that price is heading down to test $3 once again. And this short-term price action would be in keeping with NIO's longer-term trend, which as we know is bearish. We can see, zooming out, looking at the weekly chart of NIO, since that all-time high of around $66 back in January 2021, NIO has been in a long-term downtrend. There's been some counter trends coming back up to test the trend line, but each time it's come down and pushed back up, it has been rejected, confirming that the sellers are in control long-term. Now zooming back in, we can see that since that low of $3, NIO did have a strong 4 weeks, pushing up to that peak of 445. Then we had a 1 bar counter trend, testing what the sellers have got before buyers came back in and tried once again. However, price didn't get through 427 and didn't get through this level of 445. So NIO had a chance to push up and try to get towards $5, but the selling was just too strong. There wasn't enough commitment from the buyers to take that price up to that $5 level on the underside of the trend line. So now, since that peak, we can see sellers are back in control and the price is moving lower. Now, interestingly, if we look at the NIO daily chart for last week, bearing in mind it was a 4-day trading week last week, with Monday being closed on the exchange, we can see that on Tuesday the 27th, it was overall bearish, with price overall moving down. Then we did have a little bit of buying interest, but eventually price closed back down near the open. And then price did move higher on the Thursday, but was met with selling pressure once again. And it wasn't until Friday the 30th where price collapsed and dropped through the key level support of 360. So big selling pressure on Friday that took the price down. Now, with the Q1 earnings report due in a few days, we might see a catalyst in that report to attract new investors back into the fold to buy up the stock. I think most people agree that the earnings report will show heavy losses once again, hopefully less than 900 million compared to the last quarter, but heavy losses nonetheless. However, with the sales growing and with the possibility that NIO management will offer guidance for the rest of the year, and if that guidance is positive in terms of the path to profitability and the steps they're going to take to reach profitability by Q4, that might attract investors back into the fold. Some investors might think that, okay, the price is low now, it's great value compared to what it was. If profitability can come in Q4, there's a high chance that the price might reverse, and obviously getting in now is going to give you great value. But overall, there's still risk here. We must remember that NIO is in a long-term downtrend, and even the shorter to medium-term trends are always going to conform to that longer-term trend, which is down. And we've seen that over the last few weeks. We've had that counter trend rising up from $3, creating that peak at 445, but once again the sellers took over and they pushed that price back down, confirming the big picture of a downtrend. So if the Q1 earnings are positive and the guidance within that report is positive, and NIO spells out exactly how they're going to achieve profitability by Q4, we could have a bullish scenario on our hands. So we might see price fall again next week and perhaps find some support around 330, perhaps in between these two levels here. There's not a level like a markup here where it's clear that price has changed direction in the past. But next week's price bar is obviously going to include the week of when NIO reports its earnings for Q1 2025. So we'll either see another red bar as price moves down on negative sentiment, or it could be positive sentiment in that the guidance is positive, sales are up and losses are shrinking. And I think that will attract investors back in, and potentially we could see a green bar next week. We might see price reversing. Now, if it does reverse next week and buyers come back in, seeing value at this price level with the updated guidance, what could happen? So potentially price could reverse next week on positive news. So it might come down to potentially here and then reverse back up and come into this zone around about perhaps $4, corresponding to this support level here and here. So it might move to $4, then come back to test the selling interest and perhaps find support at 360 before pushing off once again to test 445 and again towards this sort of $5 zone around here. That's possible. We could see more interest in NIO stock following the earnings report, and we could see an increase in price short term. But let's not forget that strong long-term trend is still down. So it still might surge short term, but meet resistance in and around this long-term downtrend. And for price to break above the long-term trend and really take off, we need to see a catalyst. We need to see some really positive news come out regarding NIO. It could be a significant reduction in losses. Perhaps they cut the losses in half. Perhaps sales double. Perhaps the ET9 and Firefly sales really look strong for the next 2 quarters. Or perhaps NIO will announce a new partnership deal which will shore up finances for the next 2 to 3 years. There's lots of things that could happen that could be the catalyst for a breakout. But overall right now, for NIO, the risk is still towards the downside. It looks as if the price is heading for $3. However, things can change quickly. With the earnings report due next week, positive news could send the stock soaring, or it could send it moving down. I think if you're an investor, considering NIO right now, it's probably best to wait till after the earnings report to confirm direction. That might give you a safer entry and provide more information on what the stock might do over the next 12 months and if that path to profitability is realistic. Thanks for watching.